How are you doing? I get that after lunch crowd. You guys are just looking for a place to take a nap, right? I'm like, this will be a good place. As you may know, I do wield axes now, which is really cool. My name is Patrick McFadin. I am a known Raspberry Pi 2 killer. I work for DataStax, the company that loves Apache Cassandra. I love that tagline. And today's talk, I'm going to give you a moment. I'm not going to be talking about deep Cassandra topics. I'm going to be talking about more esoteric, how organizations can bring Apache Cassandra into your organization. And the reason I'm going to talk about this is because I help a lot of people do this. And I've learned a few things throughout the years. I see some faces out there, and you know who you are. I've helped you too. And I feel like this is a timely topic. Look around. I mean, Cassandra as a thing is no longer, it's not on the fringe. This is a massive conference. 6,000 people signed up for this. That is not trivial. And 4 years ago, when Adrian and I were at one of these, we had, a pizza? There's 200 people there at Mission Bay. And we all knew each other, and we're like, yeah, and we just got around, and we kind of complained about JIRAs, and that's all we did. So from 4 years ago at 200 people, 6,000 people, it is taking off. But what happens whenever you have this kind of irrational exuberance? If you follow the stock market, you know it's a bad thing. You don't get a good outcome. So a lot of times I show up at places and I get this, right? It's a fire. Because there is this massive adoption curve that people will want to really get into it, but they don't understand all the nuance, the little things. But more importantly, they don't even understand in their own organization what it takes to implement a brand new technology, one that has a lot of moving parts. So I'm going to go through three different discrete areas that will help you, maybe if you're in the early stages, or if you just want a good laugh, have a nervous laugh, and try to change the subject because you were there too. All right. So first thing first, strategy. Strategies, all right, that's the easy one, right? Of course, you need to have a strategy. What kind of strategy? The second one, which I don't think a lot of you really realize, is that you need to stop believing in unicorns. Because there's a lot of you out there that believe in unicorns, and I'm going to stop. Right on. Unicorn believer back there. All right. And second thing is reaching that maturity point with your technology, especially with Apache Cassandra. What does it take to reach that, and how do you know you got there? And there are some very clear points there. So first things first, strategy. Now, I'm going to give you the boring part of this, but I'm going to nuance it with the Cassandra part of it. So if you're going to scale Everest, right, when you're down at the bottom of the mountain, clearly you want to get to the top. Now, if you're anyone who deals with overwhelm really badly, that doesn't look like fun. And I'll tell you, there's one thing in the world I do not want to do, maybe a couple, and that is climb Mount Everest. Because I read those stories and I'm like, I do not want to do that. That looks really mean and ugly, and I have no desire to risk my life climbing a rock. But I'm going to use it as a great analogy. When you see something overwhelming in front of you, like the world's largest mountain, arguably, what do? Well, you can freak out a little bit, or you can come up with a plan. And that plan is always going to be about steps. When you climb Mount Everest, you have to follow these steps, or you will die. Now, that's a little more extreme. But think about how you implement technology in your organization. I'll bet you put on the gear and you start trekking up the hill just as fast as you possibly can. And that's going to be a bad deal. Because what's going to happen is you're going to be here. And you're going to be like, oh, the mountain is great. And then the blizzard hits. It ain't going to be pretty, right? And this is usually when I show up. When I don't show up, most likely it's this. I'm out, and you stop climbing the mountain. and you go back to what you thought was safe and small, this little tiny mountain, and it probably has a label on it. Well, that's what we've been doing for the last 30 years. We might as well go back to the little mountain. But this is, and I agree. So I just implemented some stuff in Oracle on purpose. And it just brought back, oh man, this is what I did for so long. It's so easy. It's like candy. But then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. There's one of these. And if it goes down, I'm in trouble. And then I reminded myself, wow, this is how I got here. Okay, so yes, it is a familiar technology. I wrote a relational database when I was in university. So I get that technology really well. But what I know it won't do is what I need. So when I hear about these projects, hey, we're going to start up this project. We're going to climb Mount Everest. Here are some warning signs that I hear. It's a 3-year project. That is a clear sign of fail coming. We're building a platform. Another one of the buzzwords. We'll build it with Scratch. Oh, this is the worst. From the lessons learned from the last app. Oh, the second one's going to be so much better, right? Oh, the first one was the first pancake. That was horrible. We're going to do it again. It's going to be awesome. If you believe in that, you should read about what's called the second system effect, and you'll know that there's science behind the fact that you're going to fail. And then, this is probably the one I hear the most of. We're going to rewrite everything using technology X. And it usually turns out to be Cassandra, right? So, and that's hard for me, because I'm like, of course, that's a great idea, but stop! I have a good friend. He works for the state of California. And he came to me and he says, hey, I'm not going to tell you what department because you might freak out a little bit. But he's like, hey, we want to rewrite everything and use Cassandra. And I'm like, don't. Let's get on a hangout. I want to talk to you about this. And as he's telling me, he had really good, valid reasons for doing it. And I said, Dave, that's awesome. I think that's great that you're thinking like this. I think they were on SQL Server or something pretty established in their environment. And I said, don't do this. And he said, what? He said, you're telling me not to do this. Why? And he said, because you have no people there that have any expertise in this or even want to do this besides yourself. And that's a big part of this, right? You have to have the willingness. You have to have people that want to go up that mountain with you. If you try to climb Mount Everest by yourself, you will die. And you just have to be real about this. So gaining some consensus and thinking about those things, but you have to be real about yours. Now, what you don't want is the big hot cup of fail. So let me give you some tips, important tips, on how to get away from that hot cup of fail. So first of all, when I hear all the things will be on Cassandra or all the things will be on some technology, let's just have a little reality moment, and this is what I tried to tell my friend Dave. So you have a lot of stuff in your application pool. These are things that you can do. And this is not the state of California, by the way. So let's just pick one app. Just one. Narrow it down. Don't get crazy. And not only that, you have different components inside that application that are probably a particular pain point for yourself. And I think you could probably easily point to that. Say, oh yeah, well, we've had a lot of trouble trying to get event tracking to work, so why don't we pick that? And our event tracking seems to not work as well with our current technology. Great. Now we can focus our effort on one thing, and we can start picking an implementation. Because that's the other part of this puzzle, is once you come to a conclusion, you're going to fix one thing and do it well, then you need to just kind of settle on a technology and roll with it. So in this case, we did something like, hey, we're going to use Kafka, Cassandra, and Spark. 3 of my favorite things. And great. We are going to move forward with these technologies. Now, if you'll notice, what we've done is we picked a lot to chew here. This is a lot still. But we've only picked it on one thing. Now, the other thing that I've noticed, or that I notice whenever I do this, is that this isn't really super mission critical. This isn't going to be, if it goes down, it's not going to hurt our users. Sometimes that's a good strategy. Now, I'm not saying Cassandra's going to give you downtime, but you're probably going to have it happen because you don't know what you're doing at first, but you'll learn. Product maturity is a thing. I mean, I guarantee you, my first Oracle installation, horrible, terrible. I learned many things, though. By the time I did it about the 100,000th time, I was really good at it. So finally, when you pick this implementation, it's all about sticking the landing. Now, in any kind of great project like this, you get a funny little, here's the project lifecycle, right? Yay, new project, everyone's excited. Greenfield, no tech debt, let's go, this is exciting. And about midway, and you realize you're tumbling in midair. You're like, well, I don't know about this, right? And then when you land that thing, it is so amazing. And if you pick that smaller thing or that one thing that you know is causing pain, that you know you can solve, and you stick the landing, it will be amazing. So once you get to that point, you get your confidence. And I'll tell you, all that tumbling in the air, you're learning all kinds of things. All kinds of things. Oh, I ran a SAN. Oh, I was using two gig heaps. Oh, I was running on some sketchy virtual machine that I've never even heard of, but my IT team said I had to run. I mean, whatever, right? Or I was trying this untested library, or I was using trunk from the Cassandra Apache website. That was fun, because I had to have that one feature that just went GA last week. So you learn things, like don't do that. But then as you go along, you're learning and you're going to reiterate, and then when you stick the landing, the next time you do this, so you got to move on to the next thing. So event tracking, in the bag. Everyone, champagne, everyone's happy. But you move on to the next thing. So I'm going to move on to alerting. And when you get there, you're really looking from one mountaintop to the other. Hate to tell you this. What was the old saying? What's the reward for hard work? Hard work. But it's not going to be as bad. You're probably going to be okay. There are guides that climb up Mount Everest all the time. And they do it, yes, it's dangerous, but they don't die. They're fine. And they learn how to do it over time, and they charge a lot of money to do it. Anyone finish a certification exam? You're a Sherpa. Right on. That's a lot of hands. Right on. I'm excited. All right. And that's part of it too, right? You came here, you took this examination, you did the classes, you did this stuff. You just got a maturity level. You know a bit more. Now, just because you have a piece of paper, sorry, I'm going to kind of diss on a little bit. Just because you got a piece of paper doesn't mean you're an uber expert. But I'll tell you what, you went through the steps to be that expert that you need to be. So when you look from mountaintop to mountaintop, you have a much clearer vision of what it is. And it's not that mountain's going to get shorter and shorter until, I'm not going to go back to that slide, but the Oracle Mountain, that's the one. That's what you want, this little molehill. Oh, we're climbing that? All right, that's a day hike. No problem. Switching gears. Let's stop believing in unicorns. I know, you love your unicorns, but I'm going to have to tell you no. So let's talk about what Cassandra is not. Now, when you're working with Apache Cassandra, it's easy to think, well, this is going to solve all my wildest problems, right? Vote for Pedro. All your wildest dreams will come true. But Cassandra's not a data ocean, data lake, a data pond. It's not an in-memory database, not a key value store. It's not a magical unicorn that farts rainbows. Like that guy. Let me tell you, Google image search is creepy and cool all at the same time. I typed in that string and got this. That's really cool. Amazingly, there's a lot of bad things that unicorns can do in a Google or Google search. I'll leave that as an exercise to the user. But let's look at the bounce back. All right, when do I use Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, or fill in your favorite relational database? Cache, anyone? No? All right. when would I use this? So if I have a really loose data model, and I have no idea what I'm even going to ask. I don't know what kind of, the data is going to be stored in there. There's a relational database problem right there. I'm just going to throw a bunch of data in there and hopefully join my way out of this mess. That's not a Cassandra problem. You have to have absolute consistency. And I would argue that you probably don't. But if you think you do, that's got to be ACID. And you have no need to use anything else. And that's kind of a funny point. If you're just running some little simple thing on your desktop or on like a little tiny workspace app or something like that, it was funny because we were doing this little internal application and we started using Cassandra, and I'm like, won't it be easier to use SQLite? And everyone's like, I'm like, no, because there's only going to be like 40 records in it. I mean, come on, let's be real. SQLite was an easy thing. And so we wound up using SQLite, but why? Because there was no reason to spin up a Cassandra cluster to just do this little tiny thing. It didn't make sense. Now, I'm not saying use SQLite in production for everything, but come on, don't be stupid. And probably my favorite reason to stay with Oracle, those long candlelit dinners with your Oracle rep that end with, what's your budget look like this year? I have not eaten quite as good since I stopped talking to my Oracle rep, I'll tell you right now. Never have gone to those restaurants again. Maybe someday. So when am I going to use Cassandra? And you probably already have some guesses, right? So when the uptime is a priority, when things are unpredictable, you don't even know what kind of scaling requirements you are. That's actually how I got to it. It's like, how much of this do we need? I don't know. Some, many, tons, I don't know. Well, let's just throw something in that we can add a lot of servers later and get to that point. Okay, let's do that. When the workload is transactional, it's not, I have no idea and it's analytical, it's transactional. Websites, mobile apps, that sort of thing. And the critical point, and by show of hands, I'd say that we hit this point. We can just check this box off. That you're willing to put the time in to figure it out. Awesome. Man, this is a great crowd. I usually talk about these things in meetup groups, and I'm like, how many people use Apache Cassandra? One hand, and it's the organizer. Oh, thank you. I'm buying pizza. So my favorite saying, use Oracle when you want to count your money, and use Cassandra when you want to make money. How many of you want to make money and have Apache Cassandra help you to get there? Come on now, right on. Peter, you did it twice. I saw that. That's what you're doing. Okay, so knowing what you're going to do. And I'm sure many of you have participated in this. The old, hey, here's my relational model, and that's actually killer video that runs in Oracle. That exists. I made that, and I'm shamed, but it's there. So when you take that relational model and you say, I'm just going to copy it over to Cassandra, that, my friends, is a clear admission that you do indeed believe in unicorns. When you think that you can just say, hey, this table, put it in Cassandra and magic will happen, right? No, because that's a relational database. A relational database can do things that Cassandra won't, and vice versa. So learning data modeling is a critical skill. And those critical skills that you're building here will pay off, because I'll tell you, you'll make or break your Cassandra installation with a bad data model. That's pretty much the way it goes. That's the full stop. The next thing you'll do is in operations, but this isn't an operations talk. And when we learn how to do it, when we get to maturity, the maturity is where you don't even think this is even a thing. You don't even ask this question. Another topic, which I think bears repeating. So our friends at Sun years ago, and this is something that I used to follow pretty well when I was studying distributed computing, the 8 fallacies of distributed computing. Now I'm reviving this. This was 80s and 90s, but I'm reviving this because it seems like we've all forgotten these things. And it's time we relearn them because they're still true today. So the network is reliable is number one. And this should be a clear number one, because I think a lot of you believe that once you plug in that Ethernet cable, it will last forever. It is perfect. There's no such thing as packet drop. There's no latency. There's no bad routes. It's 100% awesome all the way through gig. I get all the bandwidth. Wrong, wrong, wrong. If any of you are in the cloud, you know this is really wrong. And the network is reliable is the first thing you need to get over. Latency is 0, another good one. Well, how come it took 400 milliseconds to transmit this all the way around the globe? Physics? I don't know. Talk to Einstein. Because it's a reality that we have to deal with. Latency is never 0, even when you get into a single machine. Bandwidth is infinite. I used to run infrastructure, and I can tell you it's not infinite because eventually you get to a point where you don't have enough money. But you have to count that into this. Streaming operations at Cassandra? Hello? Network is secure? Probably not. Actually not. You're using the Wi-Fi here? Yeah. Topology doesn't change. Oh, I'm sorry, that was weird. Topology never changes. Now, that's actually a very timely topic because when topology does change, you are now working with the server that deals with topology changes, and sometimes not very well. Hey, I'm going to change things around a little bit. My rack allocations, my IP addresses, things like that. We better get on the ball and figure out what we're going to tell Cassandra because we just did something. Oh, and there's one administrator. My favorite. I keep coming back and it's different. Why? Because you have 5 admins and they all have a different way of doing things. Transport cost is 0. We all know that's not true. And the network is homogeneous is one that was recently added. That's interesting. When we talk about homogeneity, now we're even with distributed systems. Look at Cassandra deployed on multiple nodes. And it's not really critical, but if you have some running on M1 smalls that you deployed 3 years ago, and then you bring in some I2s, and you're wondering what's the difference, you might want to look into that. Because it's not homogeneous. You have to understand that, just trusting that it is. So once you get to this point, you're starting to not believe in unicorns. The thing that will beat unicorns out of your head is this. Because when you test, did I mention testing? Testing is the most important factor of any deployment. And if you're not testing, you really are believing in unicorns. Because all of those things, those fallacies that I put out in front of you, you think they actually are true, and your deployment is perfect. Well, congratulations. You're paved on the road to heaven. Because I've never deployed anything perfect, and I've also deployed a lot of stuff I've never tested, but I paid for that. But testing is a critical part. Now, what about testing, though? What about it? And the biggest flames I've ever seen where I've heard, oh, yeah, we tested our Cassandra installation like this. We ran a load test against a database. Great. Now you know your database can take a certain load, but that's not the entire picture. You really need to think about this, the whole stack. And why? I have to be careful about not naming names in this story, but I was working with a group, rather large group, and they had a mission-critical app, mission critical. If it goes down, we're all dead. All right. So they did a lot of load testing. They told me, we did tons of load testing. Awesome, great. I'm glad to hear that. What they did is they built a custom test harness with a different API that hammered the hell out of their Cassandra cluster. And yeah, their Cassandra cluster was solid. It was amazing. But then when they rolled it into production, there was a ton of bugs in their API layer that were doing horrible things to their Cassandra cluster, like adding new nodes and creating weird pools of nodes. And one of the programmers had a really weird idea of how he could implement pooling better than the driver. And all these things were in the API layer. It put 4 times the load on the Cassandra servers. Now, it's a good thing they load tested the Cassandra servers because they held up pretty well, but they were not happy. They were really at the edge of disaster with that. And they're like, whoa, we should have tested everything. Yes, you should have. And that's a bit of a cautionary tale. But if you're not really testing anything. You're testing components, which is fine. If you want to smoke check your infrastructure, great. But the API, you don't know what's going to happen. things can happen. The API layer can add things into the packets. You can have weird driver interactions. You don't know what kind of race conditions get created. Test it all. It's your sanity on the line. So finally, we're getting to this maturity moment. When you've gone through all this, you've cried, I've come, I've said, there, it's okay. And this is a good time, right? This is where we want to be. Okay, is there light at the end of the tunnel? Well, this is kind of where I show up sometimes. It's a dark day, right? We've been doing this for a while. It kind of sucks. I'm not sure if I want to do this. The clouds start to part. And then finally get some sunshine. So where are those signs? Now, if you follow this very loose guideline, but if you follow this, you're going to start seeing some things that will give you a clue that maybe we've rounded the corner here, maybe we're doing better at this, and people are seeing it. I'll give you one of the big, number one things that I've noticed that other teams sometimes don't even notice. This. Other teams come in to talk to you. I've been at places after someone stuck the landing, and I'm sitting in an office, and then somebody walks in and says, hey, when you get a minute, I want to talk about your Cassandra installation. We're thinking about it. I want to know what happened with you guys. Okay. I was in one place, there was a lot of heads popping in, and what I realized, it was a bunch of people just waiting for them to fail, and they didn't. And when they didn't, all the other teams were basically waiting for this first pancake to get done. And if you're not familiar with that term, the first pancake is never the good one. Well, they waited for that team to make all the mistakes, and then all the other ones said, you know what, I'm not looking for any heroic awards. I just want to copy what they did. And it's interesting. That's when you know, wait a minute, we got this, because we're doing something that other people notice. And when I see that, it really makes me happy, because that means, to me, that means you've arrived. And that's a good feeling. And there is nothing like peers telling you did an awesome job. There's a great book. I love this book a lot. I talk about it sometimes at some of my meetups. It's called Badass. And what I want, I don't want to make Cassandra look awesome. It can do that. But what I really want, and this is a symptom of that, is I want you to be the badass. And why? Because people are going to come to you and say, man, that app you built that didn't go down when we had that data center outage, that's amazing. You guys are awesome. This team is amazing. What did you use? That's when I'm happy, because they're going to say, well, we use this, and Cassandra in the database. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. So it makes a difference. Now, if you're in a larger organization, I know this sounds very corporate IT, but it works. It's this whole idea of the center of excellence. And I'm seeing these pop up all over the place. If you're in a large organization, this is pretty much what you need to have anymore. Centers of excellence is a very formalized thing about building these groups that have a certain amount of expertise. Sandcal was just up here from Apple. I guarantee you, he is that center of excellence for many things. Richard was in the hall over, Richard Lowe, who's a Cassandra doctor at Apple. That's his title, right? He's a part of that center of excellence at Apple, right? And building that center of excellence doesn't mean you need to create new headcount, but at least have some people that can answer questions. Probably that first pancake team, or somebody like that. And I can show you people here that took that first leap of faith to get into Cassandra, and are now seeing a lot of gain in their. I love LinkedIn because I see people advancing in their career really quickly. I was just a line programmer. Now they're like senior systems architect and office as a CTO strategy, and it's a good career move. Trust me. And those centers of excellence are where you find the people gathering for that kind of thing. And I can help you with that too. I work with a lot of teams that build centers of excellence. So the final thing, and then the place where you know you have arrived, is when you're talking at Summit. Now, that was a shameful plug, but I stand by it. When you're finally at this point, look at the Summit now. There's 130 tracks. And that could be you too. But I think, and that's something I would implore you to do, is if you make something really cool, come and brag about it. I want to hear about it. But this is also a mark of maturity. The final mark of maturity is when you can come and you can talk about it. And I mean, I see a few faces in here that are speaking at Summit, and I know that you went through all those iterations. I know it. I remember you flipping in the air, going, am I going to stick the landing? You stuck the landing, now come talk about it. And that's amazing. I'm really happy for you. If I can come see your talk, I will. So that was my final bit. This is me, but well, thank you very much, everyone. Have a great Summit.